By the morning of April the 26th, the KGB was filming the devastated scene of the worst nuclear accident in history. Whoever shot this declassified KGB footage absorbed a massive dose of radiation. The next day, the people of Pripyat were officially told the worst.
The following night I was taken to Moscow by plane. Doctors selected the first group. Only 5 persons survived from those who were on board. And my family was evacuated with the entire city.
It would take a full week for all 135,000 people to be evacuated. The radiation count was so high that flashes from it burned straight onto this film. A 30-kilometer zone of exclusion was declared, a zone frozen in time like a modern Pompeii. Over 600,000 Soviet men and women were brought in to contain the radioactivity. They worked in hellish, often chaotic conditions with extraordinary bravery in order to safeguard the rest of the world. Many of them had no protective clothing whatsoever. Everything they touched burned with radioactivity. The poisonous cloud spread beyond borders across much of the northern hemisphere. Washed into the earth by the rain, the radioactive dust lives on in plants, animals, and human beings. Within the Soviet Union, in the changing times of a new openness, the political effect was profound.
Все вы знаете, недавно нас постигла беда. Авария на Чернобыльской атомной электростанции.
I think in both a symbolic and a very real way, Chernobyl was the beginning of the end for the Soviet Union. I think in a symbolic way, the sort of meltdown, the explosion, was caused by all the inherent contradictions in the Soviet system, and therefore it's a very good paradigm, if you like, a symbol of what was to happen.
Chernobyl's death toll, though horrifying, has turned out to be smaller than many first feared. The scientific consensus is that it will cause some 10,000 cancers in Russia and 25,000 worldwide over a 70-year period. As yet, the only proven rise in disease is in thyroid cancers in children. It is in individual human lives that the cost is most visible. The fishermen spent the night watching the firemen fight the radioactive blaze until they started to feel ill. Within hours, their skin went black, a nuclear tan that foreshadowed their deaths. "30 workers, including fire crew on the site, died from acute radiation poisoning.
Я думал, ты сегодня не на смене.
А я специально пораньше из Киева вернулся.
Ну что, продал машину?
Valery Kademchuk was vaporized in the explosion while at his post in the pump room. Valery Perevozhenko died 6 weeks later of radiation burns suffered trying to find his friend Kademchuk. Alexander Akimov died 15 days after the explosion from radiation poisoning. As long as he could speak, he said, "I did everything right. I don't understand why it happened." Leonid Toptanov died 3 days after Akimov. He too protested his innocence to the grave, saying he'd done everything he could. The chief engineer of Chernobyl, Nikolai Fomin, was sentenced to 10 years hard labor, but was soon released due to a mental breakdown. He's now said to drift in and out of lucidity. Miraculously, Sasha Yevchenko survived, as did his wife Natasha and their son Kirill. But that night lives on in his memory and in his body.
I had 15 skin graft operations in the first year. The burns didn't show themselves at once. They came out here in Moscow, at the hospital. They ripened. When I was in the recovery unit, my skin was all black. When they pulled back my sheets, my skin peeled off like Xerox powder. Of course, I have to be careful now. For instance, I can drive a car, but I can't do any repairs. I can't touch petrol or oil. The wounds won't heal. The blood won't congeal properly. There are other things, but you get used to them. You just live with it. You have to.
Anatoly Dyatlov received a massive 390 rem of radiation. But even this 5 lifetimes worth of radiation didn't kill him. He lived on till 1995, when he died of a heart attack. Dyatlov served 4 years of his 10-year sentence, and in a remarkable interview given shortly before he died, he argued that in the battle between himself and the reactor, only one side could be blamed.
The reactor shouldn't have been in operation. The real blame lies with the atomic energy authorities. Not having the correct documentation, when and where it was needed, made the explosion of the reactor inevitable. The reactor marched straight to its doom.